Okay, let's quickly go through a few points before this video gets going. That hour-and-a-half long video I did took the whole of April to get done. So essentially I've missed the whole of the first tile update at its peak, which is kind of disappointing because by the time I'm finally free to play the game again, essentially everyone's gone through all of the new content, so it feels a bit like I'm coming back to a new game. Pretty much all of the event quests I've skipped because quite frankly none of them are really interesting to me. Like there's gotta be way more things to motivate me to do these, and no pendants and cute little headwears are gonna push me enough. And updating the game in little increments like this won't really interest me enough. And finally, I'm gonna touch back on the performance issue when playing this game. Through my experience, 1440p feels a bit more smoother and more stable now than before, but at this point I'm done with the unstableness of this game. There's certain times where I'd boot this thing up in 4K and it's alright at some points, and then it's just right back to looking like a mess even at low settings. All in all, it's just really disappointing that by this point in Wilds, just isn't in the right shape that it's meant to be. Crashes can still happen, the plane still looks like dog shit, you know the rest. But regardless, this is the last time I'll be touching up on the performance and just bite the pill that this game is how it is. I've got a handful of things to dive into, and really I'm just gonna sit down, enjoy the new stuff that's been added and just try and have fun, because surprisingly the past couple of new additions have been decent. And even after a month-long absence from this game, from editing my little movie, I want to just lay back and enjoy what's new. Well, to me at least. Okay, so update 1.01. The servers on the 4th of April must have been lit because by that time I went back to playing this game. It really felt like Wilds had a dip to the player count. This game almost had 1 million people playing it at its peak, but by now it kinda doesn't have that bustling feel anymore. But to be quite honest, when you're like me who hasn't played the game in a month, since finishing it, it feels refreshing again, even more so when there's new things to go through. One of those things, briefly, was the new gathering hub. On one hand, it's alright, looks good I guess. I haven't really done the cutscene with the diva singing, so I don't really know if I'm missing anything important. But on the whole, I don't really get why this hub isn't in the base game. Every Monster Hunter game before came with a gathering hub, and I don't get why it's so special to have this be added afterwards. I don't really understand the whole stuff that came with the base game in the Monster Hunter game is now being added separately in these updates. Guarantee you, somewhere down the line they're gonna add like a personal room for you to decorate, or god forbid, a proper fully functioning farm for you to use so you can gather items conveniently, with different shit that you can just upgrade and so on. But enough of this streamlining bullshit, it's time for the main course. Wouldn't you know, there's conveniently more Zosia cocoons that are starting to pop out of nowhere, so it's up to us to take these things out. I like to think that this is how you can fight these Zosia multiple times in a row. You couldn't fight this thing after beating the game, but now you can because these things are just spawning out of nowhere for some reason. A big high risk feel when you're fighting just one of these Zosias, but now that there's loads of them just appearing, it's just another monster for you to farm. Okay, so high rank Zosia. Going into it, I know a few things are gonna make this fight more interesting. Bigger damage, more health, more moves. So that's basically just the prep that I'm going in on. Alright, this guy hits hard as hell. And after not playing this game for a month, the rust is real with me warming up to fighting Zosia again. The whole breaking of the ceramic armor feels more different now, because you can regenerate them again, so I don't really get if breaking off the armor is a priority or not. But what is a priority is mounting this thing, and let me tell you, it's just as satisfying as ever. Feels like I'm doing a decent amount of damage whenever I'm in the air, and more so when this thing is down. But going back to the Zosia being more of a threat, an unlucky and mistimed landing into a spot that's about to explode, and then a really unlucky pass swipe to just knock me down, and just like that. One wing slam, and there we go. Less than 10 minutes in, and I've been giving a 3-piece combo meal to go. And not with a drink, because now I am feeling the heat. The hard hits are manageable, but the combos like that, I feel is just gonna do me in this fight. Real shit luck there, but the morale does get boosted a bit with another mount out of nowhere. Decent damage from it, but no knockdown, which is kind of annoying. But now at this point, the mindless button mashing needs to stop, because this guy isn't like in the final mission. It feels really different for me. The aerial haram style is still ingrained in the muscle memory, which should be a big help, but I feel like I'm gonna have to be a bit careful now. That mid-air Kinsec launch definitely added to the confidence boost, followed by another knockdown, but this guy is just turning up the pace. Big explosion and we are back to reality. Following up with a big fire cone and more unnecessary damage, I'm starting to get the feeling that me and him are neck and neck in trading blows, but now it's time for the big finisher, and boy howdy, I feel like there's something I need to do when he's doing that move again. More fire is being used by this guy, and I'm putting my own work in this quest. Another mount here, which I really didn't think was gonna happen so soon, but I guess now that this thing is doing its big attack, I think we are well into the thick of the fight. Anything really is gonna be a huge help. Random sticker shout out here. You'd think that I'd know how to use the radio menu better, and before I knew it, I get a fireball to the face. The theme here is really about being stupid and getting punished for it. And this guy can punish you if you turn your brain off, even for a second, I swear. Also, speaking of turning my brain off, how on earth have I just realized that there's a boulder that I can drop on his head? If you can tell, I'm a really fast observer here. Also, I didn't know that you can use the slinger ammo around the area to hit the wilk pillars that this thing jots out, and those things can explode to damage the Zosia. Good to know for me when I'm farming this thing, bad for me when I'm actually fighting this thing right now. Another big fireball to the face puts me on the ropes, and it's really getting serious now. Though after that, I try to regain my breath, and once again I get caught off by a big AoE. Big fire, and what in the actual hell was I thinking there? Quite literally, this was the most wasteful thing I can do, and that was just embarrassing. At that moment, I thought you were safe behind him, but looking back at this footage, I barely moved away from the fire. Just pure embarrassment, and we are a car away from failing the whole quest altogether. For the first time in this whole playthrough. Utterly retarded. But you know what? I think it's time for me to harness what I'm actually good at. I think it's time to introduce the next phase of one of the most diabolical styles that this franchise has ever witnessed. I think it's time to unleash my tried and trusted aerial haram. I've run that jug to the ground about an hour into the last video, but what I can't get enough of is another mount. I think this game is trying to give me a bone every time I died, and this is the way for the game to tell me that I'm trash. But mate, I need to bounce back from that god-awful feint, and I needed this. More solid comboing to try and get my groove back, and I need something to get back into the fight because I am not even halfway through this quest and I'm just struggling. Just more errors and unnecessary damage, but afterwards we are finally into the second half of the fight. Armor on this thing is off and I am in trouble. One of the main things that I do when I'm trying to lock in and actually focus is run around and try to get a breather from this whole ordeal, but I still keep getting wrecked hard. Phase 2 Zosia gives off that sweating palm feeling you get, and I need to cool down, or something to give me some breathing space, like a mount. Also, from the footage, it looks like I'm trying to stall by hitting the monster in multiple spots, but what I'm actually trying to do is to get at least 2 weak points before I finish off the mount, because basically you destroy a wound when you do your finisher, so when that happens you still got one more wound to target off once the monster goes down. You know, big bold strategic tactics are being used here, but for me it does help a bit. But the confidence is growing. The guy thinks he can just get up again and BAM! bug 2v face to sit his ass down. Too bad we're basically trading blows, cause that lightning line attack he does is lethal. Once again we're back to the slow grind and just slowly chipping his health down. I've lost count the amount of times I've kept looking down the minimap and just hoping there's a skull floating on his icon. But mashallah, the skulls have appeared. Envy morale is at an all-time high. Big mid-air bug launch and I am in my rhythm. I swear doing that focus strike in the air feels so good. More flinches followed by me and him trading blows in the air. The quest is at its peak. I remember getting way too hyped up when that happened. But as if that lightning line is way too scary and it dropped the mood a little bit. But regardless, the aerial maneuvers are just on point. And a bonus mount just adds to the goodness and bang! I'll count that as a mid-air kill. The mission is over. I'm not gonna lie, higher rank Zosia is fun. I absolutely enjoyed every second of that, and the 2 deaths just added to the hype. I'll take that after a month's worth of not playing the game. Now for the gear you get from it is pretty neat. Basically this arm set heals you slowly when you're in combat, and the design is like a half and half between the monster's phases. And as for the glaive, you get a cool buff where randomly it deals more damage, which is pretty cool. Plus the glaive looks pretty. Overall that was actually a really fun experience and I enjoy high rank Zosia, so big thumbs up for me. But enough of having one of the best fights in the whole game, it's time for more important matters. Because it's time to showcase the best mechanic in the game. Fishing! I'm more than 2 months into the game and just now am I having to experience this incredible, scintillating game mechanic. But there is a reason for me doing this. This was a side mission given by someone called Kanya way earlier on, and I needed this out of the way for her to unlock our next target. We talked to Kanya again and we need to go meet one of her friends out in the forest, but for some reason something feels off about the place. After what I've been going through in the last fight, this encounter just feels a lot more chill and grounded. It's the Mizutsune, so he really isn't a pushover, but the guy ain't exactly in the same level as the Zosia. Also, easy mount right off the bat and we are properly off. To be fair, this guy kinda behaves in the same manner as Gen Ultimate Mitsu. I feel like Rise's version of him is way more fast paced, though Mitsu in Wilds is way more grounded, at least to me. It feels that way. But one thing however I've noticed is that he's kinda smaller for some reason. I don't know, but it kinda looks that way. Well, regardless, I am putting the brakes on this guy. He's quick and that, but my mobility is just more than enough. Also, as an aside, his theme song in Wilds does feel a bit flat. I really enjoyed the Rise rendition on his music, and by comparison, it feels like a downgrade. Unlucky bubble bomb from him, so he definitely isn't a slouch, but we are just too good at this point. However, we get the most interesting part of his debut into the 6th gen. This guy now has a second stage to his rage mode, and now he's becoming more like his deviant form with that flaming eye. Unfortunately, I have never fought Zosia Mitsu before, so I don't really get to say much here, but he does look pretty neat. He does get a lot more harder from here on. But like throughout the fight, Mizutsune just cannot handle us. Even after he's shown off his new ability, we are just breaking him down bit by bit with wound breaks and a tail severed. Also, when he goes to his Zosia mode, the bubbles do get lit on fire, which is pretty cool, and the bubbles got their own physics where they can join up and become a bigger object. But regardless, I absolutely pounded this thing to death. Just straight out, this was a fairly easy fight, and if I'm being honest, it kind of feels disappointing that the first new addition to this game was kinda easy. Like, World had Devil Joe, and Rise gave us 3 Elder Dragons plus the Bagel, so for Mitsu to be so easy just feels really underwhelming. However, the armor set does look good. Mizutsune armor has always been one of the prettiest sets, and don't even get me started on his glaive. That thing has always looked absolutely stunning. Quick insert right here because I did fight a tempered Mitsu after recording my first fight with him, and yeah, I spoke too soon, this guy does hit hard. For I don't understand why they couldn't just balance the two out to not make him so easy, but regardless, he is more challenging when you do get a tempered quest. But speaking of challenging, it's bloody time. I've never really gotten invested with arc-tempered quests when they were introduced in World. I don't really see the appeal even with the new armor sets that came with them, so I guess it's time to have an open mind for this game and see what the hype is all about. So, what we've got ourselves here is a Rey Dau, and quite frankly this guy is a menace. I'm playing it safe by using the hard glaive that I've just got and gemmed in enough thunder resistance, and right out of the gate I get a mount, which is more of a psychological help for me to get the nerves down during the opening minutes. Kind of a way to slow things down a bit, but even then, the first time I got hit literally had me shitting. Gemmed up thunder resistance wasn't enough, and it was at this point that I realized this was going to be a long afternoon. Also, one thing to add is that I didn't know that the quest is an automatic multiplayer hunt because I didn't remember firing an SOS. I came in this fight fully expecting a solo experience, but as I'll soon find out, I am not good enough to fight this thing alone. The fear factor here is that the damage that this thing can dish out and a new attack where he shoots lightning on the ground does not make things any easier for me. Plus, his combos and the rate that he dishes out his moves are fucking crazy. But I'm warming up gradually at least. An absurd amount of time to drop this rock here at him for some reason, but it does land thankfully. But getting hit unnecessarily and getting comboed like a scrub, and we are on to the next area. Kinda glad I didn't die in the first few minutes, so everything is fine, at least. Had to shake off the nervousness a bit, because all I've kept thinking about was getting comboed to oblivion, but thankfully, any opening that I do find was more than enough to at least deal some damage. Also, this right here was the most cinematic aerial evade I have ever pulled off, Christ alive. Playing some stupid games here, but that was cool to do. A bit more grinding down his health. This right here is all just trying to get used to his combos and finding out what sort of openings is right for me to get in to chip away. I think I'm getting way too heavily reliant on waiting on him to do that big laser move, because afterwards his head becomes a target for a focus, right? The one thing I want to say is that I'm not really in my aerial haram stone in this fight. As much as I like to run that joke to the ground, when it comes to actually locking in and actually try and play the game right, I do keep things less air spammy and on the ground. If you ever run into me online, I do keep things on the ground for most of the time. Also, I only ever go up in the air to build up some mounting damage to help the team out. Speaking of which, here's mount number 2. And if I'm being honest, the fear and tenseness of dealing this thing is starting to wear off. Though I do get smacked around here, but as long as I know where I am next to him, getting out of trouble is fine. Also, one thing I want to add is that it's kind of funny how even if he's in the air, he can still get into a vine trap, even if his wing touches the vines. Kind of cheap to rely on it, but it does help out a bit. More decent damage done on this guy, and I'm really feeling like I'm doing some good progress in this fight. But and there's always a but. I got too cocky at this part with me being way too close onto his head. I get caught in between his zaps, and of course he does another laser that puts me down. And as if this bastard knew that I just messed up, I get caught in between this stupid bloody ledge, and this prick just spams the lasers, and the cheapest, most scrubbiest way to throw away a life. That has to be the most amateur way to get carted away, and I was just screaming my head off. Complete brain dead moment on my part, and my head was just gone. Well, I got back to it, and at least I do see a Doshiguma getting zapped to shit just like I did. Still, I had to calm down a bit because thankfully the skull icon has appeared. 1 out of 3 lives later and he's already near death, so I'm not entirely trash. Plus here's another stylish evade when I was about to die. Just got laid out a couple of minutes ago, but still doing shit like that just brought me back up. Me and him go back to the dunes, and it's just a race to kill him at this point. I get a good bit of decent hits against this guy, and I didn't think I would get this kind of progress done for the first encounter with an arc-tempered monster. I'm being honest, the expectations was low. I predicted at the second half of the quest I would get 2 out of 3 feints before the skull icon shows up, but I'm taking that. Not bad for a scrubby mountain merchant. Plus the plains finally opens up, and I do like that every time the plains has a storm going on and you're nearly done with a fight, it just goes to clear skies suddenly. Like the game is telling you that you're almost there in the finish line. Right here I put some bombs down because I rarely get to use these things. I'll wait a bit for the other NPCs to put down their own bombs, and we just go ahead and... The sound on that bastard thing nearly blew my flipping ears out, for Christ's sake. After I regain my hearing, I waste a rock drop. That thing wasn't even near the Rey Dau, so well done to me. And for some reason I'm messing about with throwing this grounding pod at him. I think I was under the impression that I can get rid of the lightning off of him with these things, which would have been broken as hell. Plus the lighting and the way that shines off on this area was just really gorgeous to look at. But we go into the air one last time, and an arc-tempered quest is crossed off that list. And I'm not gonna lie, that was fun as shit. I really thought I wasn't gonna have a good time at all in this quest, but I've got nothing else to add really. AT Rey Dau was a really fun fight, even with that one cart, and also mainly cause I got a gem afterwards, just look at that. Good feelings all around in this quest. Afterwards, it's time to look at the new gear, and to be frank, the set does look really sick, but the skills aren't really too exciting. Not really big fan of latent power, but there we have it. Arc-tempered Rey Dau is done and dusted.
Arch-tempered Rey Dau will debut in an event quest. Arch-tempered monsters are stronger than tempered ones.
Oh no! Run for your life! I'm so scared! Bah! You call this princey puppy a beastie? If I were to breathe on them, they'd become extinct. I mean, look at them. What are they gonna do? Poke you with their curly Q mustache? You're eyeing for a real challenge. Then check out this amazing creature! 10 stories tall, 30 meters long, and strong enough to rip a man in half using its wee baby toes. And the most amazing thing is that every monster is different. Every single beastie has its own unique abilities and special attacks. And the only place you'll witness this is on your Wii. In life, they're hunters. And then, they're monster hunters. Right? Right? What?